Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how CEOs, founders, and senior executives sell their ideas, point of view, and personal brand to the people who matter most. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want to build market eminence, amplify your influence, and attract high-value prospects, investors, partners, talent, and media opportunities with less chasing and more confidence. Let's go. Well, as you know, around here, we're big believers in speaking. We're big believers in speaking to generate leads, speaking to generate revenue, speaking to generate market eminence. But in order to do the speech, you have to get the speech. And do I have the man, the myth, the legend to help you with that? Mr. John Ball, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. That's a great introduction. I'm happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about the professional backstory that brought you to the work that you're doing today, and we'll use that as the springboard for our chat.
Sure. Well, way back in another lifetime ago, I was a flight attendant for a well-known airline and left that when I knew that coaching was a thing. When I discovered coaching, took me on a bit of a journey. Through coaching, I discovered speaking and training and knew that they were things that I wanted to do. And that journey just grew and grew. And I got onto trainer tracks or did all sorts of workshops and webinars and started becoming a trainer for some big personal development companies. And so that really led me onto then wanting to have my own thing alongside those as well. And I've been lucky enough to kind of get paid teaching. I've been paid to be taught in sales and in training and coaching speakers particularly, and that was like my paid apprenticeship into being able to do this for myself. I've been very fortunate.
Amazing. And you, like me, are one of the few people, and this is sad, but it's true, one of the few people that we have actually done what we are teaching. We have actually accomplished what our clients come to us to learn how they can accomplish. And it is consistently amazing to me the number of charlatans and goofballs and fly-by-night whack jobs that come into the speaking business. They look at it like it's ripe meat. They set up shop with whatever whizzle jizzle magic they have. And then you're like, well, have you ever done what you're teaching? No, but I know about funnels and marketing and ads and this and that and blah, 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 blah. I wrote my book with AI in a weekend and I know about blah, 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 blah. So, oh my God. So I just have to give you a shout out as being one of the good guys in this business, good guys and gals. You actually know what you're doing because you have done what you're teaching. And I think that's incredibly, incredibly important.
I think it's integrity, really, isn't it? And there's a lot of that missing in the world in various places these days.
Oh my gosh.
When we see it, I think it becomes like a lighthouse for people to, to steer away from what they don't want to hit, but to guide them safely to the port that they want to go to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know one of your zones of genius, and maybe particularly relevant to our topic here on the show, is sales and selling. Organized, proactive, non-yucky, actually, dare I say, enjoyable ways to proactively sell as opposed to literally sitting by the phone waiting for the phone to ring. For people that are not familiar with the business of speaking, would you agree, no matter how, let's say they were a huge sales success in their previous career. They were selling telecommunications services. They were selling plumbing supplies. They were the number one salesperson at their company. They hang up their shingle. They want to be a speaker, coach, consultant, and they realize, oh, wait a second, John Ball, this is really different. This is not like any other kind of selling that I've ever done. Speak to that for a moment, if you would.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that I would sort of say today. That in terms of people who I've worked with and coached over the years, people who've come from sales are generally the most eager and enthusiastic to start doing the selling for their speaking work. And I'm always happy to see that, because not everyone comes into it wanting to do the sales bit.
Mm.
But it's a different way of approaching things. It's generally less flashy. It's sometimes more procedural and habitual, and creating regular activity and follow up and all the stuff that kind of seems boring, but it's
Yeah.
actually developing relationships and showing your consistency, and allowing people to trust you and to have your name keep showing up with people as well, who are going to be the people who book you. Because
Yes.
it is when you have those kinds of relationships, if you want a full speaker calendar, however, whatever full looks like for you, you have to develop the relationships. It's not just sitting by the phone, hoping someone will ring you, or checking your emails every few minutes to hope someone's sent you an email or a LinkedIn message, which is,
Yes.
and I say that it sounds like, well, who would do that? So many people do. They're waiting for it all to come to them, especially
Yes.
in speaking, where people
Yes.
think, well, I just have to go on stage and be the star and it will all
Yeah.
come to me. And it doesn't really work that way.
So, one of the things that I think a lot of people do, a lot of speakers do, or executives who speak, consultants who speak, etc., is they post and pray. So they post on LinkedIn, they post on YouTube, because everyone says, "Oh, you have to be, YouTube video. Video is the medium for speaking," which is true. I write a blog, I send out a weekly email, and they think that is sales activity. And then once in a while, the sad thing is, it's this sort of intermittent reinforcement, because once in a while, even a blind squirrel is going to find a nut. They say, "Oh, someone responded to my newsletter and says, 'Hey, John, we have an event coming up. We'd like to talk to you about perhaps speaking there.'" And that little proscribed world of post and pray, they think that's what sales is all about. I know that you, with your clients and audiences, you teach a very different daily proactive regimen. Let's talk about that for a moment, just so people understand what a sales process and a sales discipline actually looks like.
Yeah, and this really is what you're talking about, is the difference between reliable and unreliable bookings, right? If you want consistency in your work, any kind of regularity, sometimes, like you said, we get enough of a signal from something to have that hope there that it might lead to more, and we keep hoping for that tipping point to come at some point. But we're not. We think we're doing a lot of things and making progress, but it's not really until we understand what is going to get you booked consistently that it's going to make a difference. And that really is a case of showing up. And if you want to be like a full-time speaker, if that's your main thing and you want to be doing lots of speaking events, that's pretty much showing up every day. And it's not like all day, every day. I'm not talking like make it your 9 to 5. I mean, give it an hour a day of pretty solid intention and searching and outreach and follow up with people. And you're probably going to see the kinds of results you want, and they will build up over time as well. But it takes time to build that up, because as much as we would love to have the sort of add water, stir, and it's fixed for you, it becomes a process that you will get better and better at of reaching out. End up having to, that's like in any kind of sales, you have to learn how to not take rejection personally and to become a bit more resilient to all of that. And realize that no, in the speaking world particularly, doesn't mean no forever. It means right now, no, or right now, look, we've got someone else, or I don't have headspace for you, whatever. That you follow up again later on. But that's really it, is having that daily outreach, that daily proactive outreach to people, of prospecting for opportunity for yourself. And there are so many great ways of doing that, that it's really pick a channel that is going to work for you, where the kinds of people and companies or whoever it is you want to speak to are going to be available for you, and get to work.
Yes. Now, when you say that, I'm just channeling our listeners. They're like, "Oh, John says I should do 30 to 60 minutes of random cold calling a day." So outreach, relationship building, these are all code words for look at the directory, start with A, or if you're clever, start with Z, because no one ends up calling those people. Start with A, go forward, start with Z, go backwards, and just we're dialing for dollars. We're smiling and dialing. That's probably not what you're recommending. No. Tell me what that 30 to 60 minutes should consist of. What's the secret sauce? Where do people start if this whole concept of proactive prospecting is fairly new to them?
First of all, you have to identify who you're speaking to. And so long as you know that, it's going to be a much easier ride to then start identifying the places and people that you should be reaching out to and connecting with. So if you want to speak to companies, particularly, and certainly in the UK and Europe where I work, if you want to be a well-paid, serious speaker, that's pretty much your avenue. We don't have all the associations and other speaking avenues so available that are in the US. And so that's pretty much where you have to be as a paid speaker. So then it's like, well, what companies are you speaking to? What are you speaking to them about? When you know that, you can start identifying them, whether it's LinkedIn or some other tool that you use, or even Google search, to find the people, identify the companies that are like the right size, the right fit. And then it's a case of finding an email address that you can reach out to them with for that initial contact. I think most of us are pretty comfortable at least sending a very short email to find out who it is we need to speak to, rather than cold calling.
Quick commercial interruption. Pitchy alert. In addition to this podcast, you are aware that I sell books, coaching, and private advisory services to CEOs, founders, and established experts who want to build their market eminence. If that's something you want to talk about, hop on my calendar at doitmarketing.com/call. Now, back to the interview. Let's talk about this, because in the association world here in the US, it's fairly easy. We know who to contact. We know the job titles, not difficult. I think in the UK and Europe and in the US, there's clients will come to you and say, John, I got a problem. I have no idea who the decision maker is. Or, John, I have a problem. There's 20 potential decision makers in this company, right? I could go to the VP of sales, the VP of marketing, the chief people officer. If I teach customer service, I go to the chief customer service officer. So some of this will depend on your topic, right? Your topic area of speaking expertise. But how do we start to find the trees in the forest that are the actual economic buyers inside a corporate structure?
Well, generally, that should be the first email you ever send. Are you the person responsible for booking speakers for your company's events? Or do you know who that person is? If you think it might not be that person, could you tell me who's responsible for booking speakers for your company events? The thing you're looking for is a response that you can then follow up with, and all you're trying to do is find out who actually books speakers for those events, or if it's workshops you're doing, who books workshops, because they may be different people, as I'm sure your listener will probably be aware. But that's all you really need to find out. But it's pretty much you can write it in a way that it's a pretty much yes or no email. Like, are you the person responsible for this? Yes or no. And it's a nice, easy response. And then you can follow it up with, if they're not, could you tell me who is?
Yeah.
And I must admit, I always guide as well. Like my clients, I'll always say to this, the thing I would do, if there is a phone number in the response that you get, should you get one, because not everyone will respond, should you get a response and you see a phone number, call them. Call and say, hey, thank you for responding to my email. Could you tell me who actually is responsible for booking speakers for your company?
Is there a likely place to start? So like the usual suspects, if you will. If I want, and again, I want to clarify something else, and maybe you have a take on my clarification. We are not talking about calling Google or Microsoft or any of these giant corporations that have tens of thousands of employees. You can call on a mid-market company. You can call on a regional branch or division of a large global company. You can call the headquarters in your city, right? The home office of a large company, because there's the way the corporate structure works, there are organizations within the larger organization, and there's budget within the budgets, and there are decision makers under the big corporate decision makers. So sometimes when I hear speakers, John, they say, well, I always talk to the CEO. It's like, no, you don't. That's ridiculous. The CEO of Google and Microsoft and ExxonMobil and Shell Oil, you're not talking to those CEOs. You might be talking to the CEO of a regional division of a regional product line, right? Because there's you look at the corporate structure in most of these big companies, there's literally 100 CEOs. There's the CEO of the Western division. There's the CEO of the Eastern division. There's the CEO of the storage division. There's the CEO of the retail division. Anyway, I'm ranting, but where do we start unpacking all of that?
Sure. I mean, the CEO might be the person who makes the decision ultimately as to whether you come through or not, but it's probably not the person you need to speak to, because they don't generally want to be doing the work of finding and interviewing and sorting through speakers to come to their events. But yeah, you do need to identify the kinds of places you need to speak to. Like when I first started, I started identifying engineering companies, because a lot of the people who were coming to me were in the engineering sector. There's often particular struggles of communication that they have in that sector, where they were looking to develop their ability to be able to communicate up and down the ladder. And they weren't being taught those sorts of leadership and communication skills. So they was like, well, where can I find those sorts of companies? Let's look for them. I wanted to look ideally for ones that had bases in different places. They weren't just one company in one place. They had different sites, often in different countries, where I could also be referred or speak to some of their bigger events, potentially as well, once I'd had some successes with some of their more local offices. That's really where I wanted to get to. So I might go in and, like, one example would be going in and doing a workshop in a local company here that led to them saying, hey, we would love you to take that to different offices around our company, around Europe, and deliver the same workshop. Great. That was regular work for me. And no need for referrals. They'd already decided that they wanted me. It was just a case of, right, let's get you into these different, thankfully all English speaking offices around Europe. Great. But I was able to identify that was someone who I wanted to work with and develop a relationship with somebody there, who was then able to refer me to a senior manager. And then we got into that, we should bring this person in, but we've never had anyone in to do a workshop before. But that was exciting. But once you start to identify those things, that's a relationship for the future as well, that where you're likely to get asked back and you can discuss with them, hey, here's what else I could offer you.
Yes.
But it's just finding these places and making those initial outreaches. One of the things I'll often say, which is, I think, a nice way, a sneaky way, if you like, but not unethical, of doing this, is to take a look at other speakers in your area on the topics that you speak at, and see if you can find their websites, which you can find on professional speaking organizations and in bureaus as well. You can find their sites and you can see where these people have been speaking, and you can then start to identify, all right, would some of those places be good for me to go and speak at as well? And you could potentially then try and find somebody there to connect with. So I think there's lots of ways you can get this started, but you have to have a list of people you need to try and contact first.
Yes. I love the specificity of the example that you shared, that when you were starting out, you decided it was engineering firms, multi-site, multinational, not just, hey, there's one place in, London or Valencia or wherever they happen to be. And the specific communications problems of an engineering firm, engineering leadership, right? That is a very specific reach out. That is not, is like, hey, I'm a speaker. Do you ever use speakers for your events? That is a problem solving probe. That is not a, do you want to buy my stuff kind of probe.
Yeah. And that's what we don't want, is to go in there as like, it's all sell, buy my stuff. It's like, nobody likes that. We get that in our DMs all the time. The thing you were saying about people posting all the time on LinkedIn. It's like, well, that's what you get a lot of in your inbox if that's all you do. Or you get people wanting to speak for free, or people who want to pay you to speak at, you pay them to speak at their events. It's like, oh, okay, you probably don't want that.
Right.
You want to get paid for what you do.
Now, let's talk about, we've got the speech. We've sold the speech. We're excited. We are preparing what happens in that 45 to 60 minute keynote. My firm belief, and I'd love your take on this, my firm belief is marketing will get you the first speech, and then the quality of that first speech will determine your spin-off business, repeat business, referral business, and so on. A lot of speakers just do a data dump. Still today in 2026, you've told them 1,000 times. I've told them 1,000 times. Everyone who knows what they're doing, their smart friends have told them 1,000 times. It needs to be engaging. It needs to be humorous. It needs to be experiential. It needs to be memorable. There needs to be bathroom buzz, hallway buzz. Oh my gosh, remember when John took out the 3 paper cups and blah, 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 blah. They get up and they're narrating a slideshow. And then they wonder, where's the spinoff business? Why am I not being invited back? Why are the evaluations not as good as I thought they might be? Talk to us about, in 2026, what kind of presentation will get you rebooked, referred, and passed around like candy?
I think one that actually makes an impact on people is what will get you referred. And that is not going to be an overload of information, because we get that everywhere else.
Yes.
And I see it particularly strongly, not just with these people, but primarily with people who've come from teaching and training backgrounds. They find it very hard to break away from that always be teaching kind of aspect of, and forgetting that, was this not that you're putting on a stage show? It's not all entertainment. It has to walk that line between entertainment and education as well.
Yes.
But the real education is the difference that you've made to that person or the audience, people in the audience, as to what they do differently or think differently, believe differently, how they act differently when you have finished your talk. And if they've got 50 different things to choose from in there, it's not clear to them what the action is that they should be taking. When you land on a website and there's like links to everything under the sun, you don't know what to click on next. You're more likely to go and find a simpler website. Too much choice is paradoxically no choice at all. We prefer simpler choices. It's easier for us to manage them. Same with what we get from somebody on the stage. If you give us something nice and simple to focus on, make sure that point is reinforced, it's memorable, it's backed up with stories. If you don't know the one key thing that you want your audience to take away from your talk, then why are you doing it? What's it really for? This is the thing that you think you have to know. It's like, yeah, there's going to be frameworks, there's going to be other elements that go into this, but what's the one key thing? If they remember nothing else about you, what's the thing to say, oh yeah, you were that guy who did this, or you were the lady who did that.
Right.
What do you want them to remember about the talk that's going to make their lives or their work better because of it?
1,000% agree. You know, it's funny, in preparation, John, in preparation for our interview here today, I was reflecting on all my previous guests where we specifically talk about speaking. And I just bring on really smart, really amazing, really engaging experts like you. I have yet to have a violent disagreement with any of them. And I think this would be a much more interesting show if I said, John, that is complete poppycock. That is not how it works at all. What evidence do you have to support blah, 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 blah? But again, I can't do that because I only have smart, enlightened people who actually know what's going on and know how the marketplace works. So I can't really violently disagree with anything. There is a secret strategy that I know that you teach that I would love you to share with our guests. It's a little bit meta. And the reason it's a little bit meta, it's because it's about podcast guesting. Why professional speakers, executives who speak, consultants who speak should regularly be a guest on podcasts, which will lead to speaking opportunities. Talk about how and why that works.
I'll frame it up first as saying that the strategies for becoming more well-known on social media are generally a bit slow. And so it can take a while to do that. And even then, most people are not focused or directed enough to really make that happen.
Yes.
And so you end up, I think a lot of speakers end up being reliant on their speaking being the thing that they become known for.
Yeah.
But years of being a podcast host and guest myself have really taught me that there's huge value in becoming more known for what you do, with the kinds of people who are actually likely to then want to either work with you or as a coach, as a consultant, as a speaker or workshop leader, in whatever ways that you offer.
Yeah.
But when you are known to them, it's easier for them to think, well, you're already in their head. They've already heard your voice. They already have a pretty good idea of what you're all about or what they're going to get when they work with you, when they book you for an event. Whereas if you are doing all your prospecting yourself from zero, you have to get all the way through that with somebody to be able to get to them booking you.
Yes.
So having that in advance is a huge difference. And I think it really highlighted it for me. Actually, just this year, something really highlighted it for me was having Mark Schaefer on my podcast. And Mark has a great book called Known. And one of the things I said to him was like, how did he first asked him how did he first realize that he was well known? And it was through being asked to speak and realizing that the only reason he'd been asked to speak was because people knew who he was from his book. And so I've been sort of thinking more and more about that, and I've always known that things that will get you more known will be having a book, having your own podcast, or being a podcast guest, being on more stages, having newsletters that people read. There are so many different elements that could help you become more known. But I think one of the easiest, most leveraged paths to doing that is podcast guesting, strategic podcast guesting, not just going on every single podcast that's out there, because some people certainly do that.
Yeah.
But getting on the right podcasts with the right kinds of audiences, where the right kind of people are going to get to know you and what you do and what you're about and why they should book you or refer you or buy your book or podcast or whatever it is that you're offering. But that's one of the ways that you can get to do that. That's very inexpensive. It's time expensive to some degree, but it's very inexpensive. And somebody else, generally, depending on how good the host is of the show, is going to be doing all the promotion pretty much for you.
Yes.
And creating all the materials, all the clips and articles and everything else that goes around that. Mostly all you have to do is help them share it, really.
Yes.
Because they've done all the work for you. I just think it's a very highly leveraged way of becoming more known, but it has to be done strategically. And that's where most people, I think, have been going wrong with it.
I think when you say strategically, it goes beyond just choosing the right shows. So, for example, if you're a customer service speaker, you're going to target customer service podcasts. If you're a leadership speaker, you're going to target leadership focused podcasts because that's the audience you want to be in front of. When you say strategically, are there things that we should be doing before being on the show, during the show, what we actually say, what we mention, the ideas, the way we frame them, what we use as examples on the show, what can we do? And then after the show, what can we do to maximize its lead generating potential?
Well, something that will come more naturally as you do more of these anyway is being prepared when you show up to those shows. So ideally, you want to have some kind of rapport in advance with the host. And if you haven't connected before, you do need to listen to some of their previous episodes, or maybe at least skim through some of them to have a bit of an idea of the style of the show. It is having that, I mean, I'll sum it down to this: the preparation factor is the other big difference here. And this is part of that. Showing up prepared. You wouldn't show up to do a keynote without any preparation. So why would you show up to do a podcast without that. And sure,
That's right.
we've all had those podcasts that are a bit like, oh, hey, welcome to the show. Tell us about yourself. And then it's half an hour of somebody giving you their backstory, and
Right.
yawn fest, really. And this is one of the things that podcasters, like, people joke about these things with podcasts, but it's so common. Those are the podcasts that you probably don't really want to be going on because they're not very interesting or exciting to listen to. But also, you've played along with that because you haven't shown up prepared to sort of give a short, punchy answer.
Yeah.
You haven't shown up with probably stories that are ready to go, case studies, or being able to have the flexibility to be fully relaxed. I talk a lot about presence with the stuff that I do. It's a lot about is being present. For presenting, you want to be present.
Yes.
And part of that for me is in the rehearsal, the preparation, the being ready to do that, because I don't think you have full access to your available flexibility if you're not fully prepared. If you're not practiced and prepared and ready to go, you have to think of so many more things. That, like, if you want to be funny, it's harder to do that. If you want to go more with the flow, it's harder to do that if you are trying to think of what's the right thing to say here, or
Of course.
Yeah, you don't have that in mind. You have to get to that bit as well, where it's like, at some point, I probably have to shut my mouth and let the host speak as well, which is what I'm going to do now.
Well, no, that's great. Well, it's funny. My personal philosophy, both as a host and a guest, is I feel the very best show dynamic is when people feel that we're co-hosting, right? That we're co-hosts. I go, okay, John's going to throw out some ideas. David's going to respond or, dig further into that. John's going to respond again. David's going to throw an idea on, and it's sort of a cumulative conversation, much like if we were sitting down having coffee. Right, we'd sit down in a coffee shop and we'd be riffing and ranting, and you would have a 5-minute rant, and I would be like, "Oh my God, John, that's amazing, that's fantastic. Let me tell you what really makes me crazy about this." And then I have a 5-minute rant, and then people are a fly on the wall, and they're like, "Oh, these people are having a genuine conversation." Again, it's that intimacy, getting to know them, getting to, especially with a podcast. The podcast is a very intimate medium because you are literally in their ear. You are whispering sweet nothings in their ear for 30 to 40 minutes. And it's a great way for your personality and what you believe in and your character and your sense of humor to come across very naturally. Are there things that we should do in the podcast that are perhaps obvious, but they can't appear obvious? So for example, John, this reminds me when I was keynoting for this large engineering firm, one of the executives said to me, blah, 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 and here's how I helped him solve that problem. So am I dropping in some kind of soft mention or dropping some seeds of envisioning me as a speaker in the front of a room or on a stage?
I think it's generally helpful to do that, to drop those seeds in. But more than anything else, I agree with your philosophy. Be engaged with the conversation as well, which means you're not just there to answer questions. You are there to really listen to the host. And listening isn't just hearing the words they say. It's picking up on whatever other cues might be coming up as well. Like if you think, oh, I think maybe the host wants to interject here or ask another question,
right?
Then give them the space to do that. So you do have, different to keynoting, you have more that double act kind of thing, or sometimes it's more than one host, but you have a different dynamic. But you need to make sure that the audience, really, your audience, they would have come for you more than they've come for me. They're here for you, for your show. So at some point, it's like, well, they want to hear from you, not from me rabbiting on for however long.
Well, they're here for my excellent and incredibly discerning taste in guest selection. That's what they're really here for.
That's the real trick to it.
Let's turn this on the flip side, because you yourself have a very interesting podcast strategy. You have a great podcast called Professional Speaking. You have a mix of solo shows
Yeah.
and guests. Solo shows, guests. Solo shows, guests. I think it alternates, right? Every other episode, it's either you solo, you and a guest. Sometimes we mix it up. Tell me about how that came about. Why isn't it a purely solo show? And why isn't it a purely interview show?
Things may have turned out very differently if I'd started that podcast more recently, but I started back in 2019, even before pandemic and all that.
Sure.
So yeah, it was actually a Toastmasters project, crazily enough, but it was something that I really wanted to do, and then just started doing it. But things looked very different back then. Like finding guests was a bit harder, and even understanding show formats and stuff. There were only a handful of very popular podcasts at that time, and most of them, some of them are still very popular now, but mostly things have the field has changed. I started doing purely my first show was I had a friend on with me as a sort of anchor, I guess, co-anchor.
Sure.
That was more for my comfort than anything else, because it was mainly me. Should have been a solo show. So some of them started off that way, but then I wanted to speak to people and have guests, and I was very clear about what I wanted for that time. The show started really being about influence and persuasion skills. That was like my real thing, and then developed more into bringing the speaking part into that as well, because they're very closely connected. And so for a long time, it was just interviews. And then at some point, somebody started. I got some advice from a very good podcast expert who said, at some point, you have to show your expertise as well, because you're just going on the podcast and like, well, you're asking the questions, you're having the conversations, but are the audience really getting that you are an expert in this? And I will say that there's definitely been so much value to getting expertise from other people. I've had coaching from some of the world's top speakers for free on my show.
That's right.
I get guided and led and grow. I grow and develop from all these people I've had on my show. But then I need to bring some of that to my audience as well and show them, hey, look, I'm not just the curious guy who's interested in this. I actually have expertise and a unique perspective and elements that I want to bring to you as well. But I want to keep it interesting for them too. So I don't just want it to be guests all the time. I want it to be like, sometimes I just want to speak directly to my audience and be that voice in their ear. Sometimes I want to share with them. Something I'm coming back to is doing some more book reviews and things like that. It's like books every speaker should read is something I'm going to start doing pretty soon. But it's keeping the format lively. I've started doing coaching sessions and putting those out for people as well. So is that what's going to be most valuable? And that's my real thing here. What's going to be most valuable to my listener? What's going to be most valuable to speakers to help them grow and develop? What do they need? So it's like, who are the people they most need to hear from? What are the things they most need to hear? How do we deliver that to them? And the real thing for me is like, how do I create unmissable episodes for them? And that's my brief for my show.
Holy smokes, so much value in this episode. Listen, if you are loving what you're hearing, feel free to download, subscribe, tell a friend, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to The Selling Show. Now, back to the interview. I am curious, and I think people listening are curious. What is the John Ball empire? What is the menu of services? How do you work with your clients and audiences? What does small and medium and large and supersize look like if a speaker's listening to us and goes, man, this John Ball, I think I need some help in these areas. What are the various investable opportunities that you have to offer?
A speaker who does speaker coaching is like, was it Miranda Priest who say groundbreaking, right? It's not unusual, is it? But in terms of what I offer, I've seen that there's some very specific things that people get stuck on. I've spent a lot of time working with speakers who are getting started as speakers, like starting from scratch and helping them go from there. But what I often saw was that they weren't really getting over the line. They were getting those bits and pieces, things here, very piecemeal sort of things, not really having the consistency. Even sometimes knowing what to do, it was still, sometimes you can know what to do and still not really do it.
Oh, yes.
How do you get to like being starting out or being stuck as a speaker up to the higher levels And what I recognized was that a lot of people just don't really treat it like a business. And so my coaching is really designed to help them treat it all like a business and do the business side of things, show up as a business owner, but also to still develop the skills that are going to wow the audiences as well.
Yeah.
Because what I see is a lot of people out there who are they're teaching the storytelling skills, or people are teaching the stagecraft skills, or something the comedy stuff, and all of that's great. I love all of that, but it's not necessarily, it's not the only thing, or it's not really the main thing that's going to get you booked more. And it really is having that business mind of this is a business more than anything else. You are not just the diva, the star who shows up and delivers a great performance. You have to be more than that. You have to grow to be more than that, and even become more excited about doing those elements of it, because it's going to expand who you are and make you help you show up more seriously.
And now, how do you help people do that? Because I think what's something brilliant that you've done that is a lesson I need to learn. I used to sell one thing, and it was the big thing, and it was the year-long thing, and not everyone needs the big thing. So, John, you can work with people from, I think, 60 or 90 minutes up to multiple years, and you have productized those services. Right. So I'm not asking you to pitch us. I'm asking you to share your brilliance in productizing your expertise. What are the various stages and phases of working with John?
Yeah. So one of the earliest ones is I do have an audio course that people can do. They don't even have to get on live with me. They can do an audio program to help them with the strategic podcasting side of things. But I do also work more with people on that who work with me as their clients. But I also offer a speaker business audit where we can go more deeply into like what's working and what isn't working in your business. Like, is your website really serving you as a speaker? Is it clear what your keynotes are? How are your abstracts going down? Are they even there? Is there footage of you speaking? What are your keynotes like? Are they just the info drops? Are they just more like lectures than anything else? And that's stopping you from getting booked. So it's really we're going to identify all the things that are potentially stopping you from getting the kind of bookings that you want. But the ongoing work would be from there to develop the engine. So the next stage from that is work together to develop a business engine for you that's going to get you more consistently booked, get you into the practice of doing the activities that will get you booked rather than hoping that you get booked, and then improving on what you do on stage so that you're not just one of those people who has a great business because you do the business side of it, but you're also fantastic at what you're doing when you're on the stage as well. And so I think it's really a very holistic approach to this. Is saying, all right, we're not just going to do that one aspect of like make you great on stage. We're going to get your business where it needs to be, and give you the support all the way through that, and the guidance, the feedback. We're going to watch your demo. We're going to put your demo video together. We're going to watch clips of you doing your talk and pull it apart, so that you can become better from that. It's like, I'm going to put in the reps, but I'm going to be your guide. And I think a diagnostician as well. I'm very good at diagnosing where the issues are with people, and helping them say, all right, this is what actually needs to be fixed and is going to make you a better speaker.
Nice. Really, really great. Well, we totally have to have you back. For today, let's land the plane. If people were to take one core concept from our conversation today about success in sales as a speaker, or just success as a speaker, because obviously you have to sell it, you have to do it really well, you have to be able to, repeat, refer, recommend, speaker sales success. What one core concept or takeaway around speaker sales success would you like to leave people with?
Stop waiting for it to come to you.
1,000%. 1,000%. So where can people go? What links can we put in the show notes? How can people get connected and stay connected to more John Ball brilliance?
Well, one of the best ways to connect with me is on LinkedIn, because I'm on there a lot and I have a regular newsletter there as well. But I also hope people will connect with me on the podcast. Professional speaking as well is weekly episodes, and you certainly get to know more about me and have amazing guests on my show as well, including yourself, David.
shocking, shocking. I can't believe this. It's like amazing, totally amazing. So we're going to put links to all of that in the show notes, to the website, the podcast. Can we also talk about the quiz?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a 2-minute audit. It's like wherever you're at with your speaking business, if you're just getting off the ground or if you're a little bit stuck or you're somewhere along the way, but not really where you want to be right now, we've got a quick 2-minute audit quiz that will help you to diagnose where the issues are and give you a path to starting to fix them.
And it's really good. And I scored 63%, and I have a little bit of a ways to go, but that's okay because I'm cheating. I'm doing a lot of consulting and coaching and advisory work as well. But it's funny when, you take a seasoned speaker who has modified their business model and like, well, I want to get back into speaking. It's like, oh, you got to retool some stuff, buddy, because right now you ain't ready to jump back in. And that's what your quiz helped me to see. It's like, oh, I got some basic foundational building blocks to work on. And by the way, the report and the video that comes with it, super useful. So you'll find that link directly under this episode as well. Of course, all of that is at thesellingshow.com. And John Ball, thank you for sharing your brilliance with us.
It's been a genuine pleasure. Thank you.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.